Wednesday, July 15th, 2020, 12 p.m. We are called to order at 12:01. I am told to read this statement. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12th, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the Open Meeting Law, General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 18, and the Governor's March 15th, 2020 order imposing strict limitation on the number of people that may gather in one place, this meeting of the Southborough Personnel Board will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information and the general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and/or parties with a right and/or requirement to attend this meeting can be found on the Town of Southborough's website at https://www.southboroughtown.com. For this meeting, members of the public who wish to watch or participate in the meeting may do so in the following manner by finding the meeting at https://www.southboroughtown.com, remote meetings, period. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event that we are unable to do so, despite best efforts, we will post on Southborough's website an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting, period. Thanks. I will add this meeting is being recorded and all votes will be by roll call. And thank you to our Zoom host, Vanessa Hale, who's getting very good at this, I imagine, at this point. All right, first item on our agenda, administrative business. In the packet, you have minutes. These were sent to the board. These should be Bates numbers 1, 2, 3, and 4 in your packet, 1 through 4. These are the minutes of our last meeting, July 1st. They were sent to the board prior to the meeting. So I will waive the reading of the minutes. Any corrections or comments from the board? Nope. There being no comments or correction, the chair approves the minutes as presented in the packet. Thank you all. Okay, next item is the chair's report. Put a few things down here. I think a couple of them are important, so I will ask your indulgence. You have, the first thing I want to talk a little bit about is messaging and communication. You have in your packet at Bates number 5 and 6, 2 emails that I sent out after our July 1st meeting. I hope they met with the board's approval. This is something we discussed my doing. Comments or questions on the communications that I sent?
No.
Everybody good?
Yep.
Thank you, board. So in doing these, I realized, so there are some issues related to communications. I wanted to get all on the same page. When we send these communications, I look at it as 3 things we're trying to accomplish. 1 is the what, that is what's the message we're trying to send. 2, who's the audience we're sending it to. And 3, how do we do that? And the how is pretty easy. It's usually email. So I had a discussion with Vanessa about how email works. I was a little confused and now I think I got that straight. There are various distribution lists on the Town of Southborough email system. They are maintained by Mr. Laflamme. Sometimes we want to reach the group of managers that I call chairs of public bodies or chairs of boards and committees with SAP employees. This is a group that apparently is specific to personnel board. Mark and Vanessa message with department heads frequently, so they have that list and that's kept up, but there is not a list specifically on the system. So talk to Vanessa, I talked to Tom, I talked to Jim Haggerty, and I'm all set. I will continue to maintain that as a private distribution list. So the how's pretty easy. That gets to the messaging itself, which we all agreed at our last meeting. Messaging, the content should come from this board because it's our message. So the second part, the audience, that's going to vary from time to time. So I did follow up with Mark Purple. I don't know, is he here today with us,
Yes.
Vanessa?
Yep, he is.
Okay, good morning, Mr. Purple.
Good morning.
So Mark provided some guidance to me on the messaging that he has sent out. You have 2 memos in your packet. One is the memo that he sent out regarding the Bates 7. You've seen this before. This is the memo that Mr. Purple sent out in December about the annual adjustment. And then I just sent you one this morning. I realized I hadn't put it in the packet. I don't know if everybody saw it. It was Mark's memo to department managers about the new performance tool. Did you all get that about an hour and a half ago? Great. And I wanted to put this in because not to put anybody on the spot, but I think it's illustrative of some of the concerns that I have that I think we can do better with in the future. So directing your attention to the email that went out, attached is the new performance evaluation form approved by the personnel board. Please feel free to use this form, he says. Moving forward, it's a great improvement. So I agree with all those sentiments, but just a couple of things I wanted to highlight. This email, like his previous email about the annual adjustment, went only to the department heads. So it's obvious to me as chair of this board, we need to do the messaging to the public bodies, those managers like library trustees, planning board, anybody who's a manager with an SAP employee, because Mark doesn't include those when he sends out these emails. So we can talk if we want him to include those people. Maybe he's comfortable with that, maybe he's not. But we as a board have the responsibility for getting the message out to the people that Mark is not messaging to. Secondly, with respect to the performance evaluation form, he says, please feel free to use this form. I'd like to follow up on that in our next meeting because as I read this, it's not mandating use of the new form. So I'm not sure why he put that in, and we can discuss that at the next meeting. But I just highlight this as sometimes the message that we think we're sending and that Mark volunteers to send to us, when it gets sent out, it doesn't exactly comport with what I thought we were going to say, which would be, here's the new form you have to use under section whatever of the SAP. So I'll put that specific item on our next.
You can't open that document.
You can't open Mark's email?
I can't see it. I got the email open, but I can't open the document.
All right. Does
Not
everybody
opening.
else have it?
Yeah, mine opened fine.
Mine's
Okay.
not opening.
So I will read it into the record. Email from Mark Purple, Tuesday, November 19th, 2019, 5:26 p.m. to DL, that means distribution list, department managers. Subject, new PE form. Attachments, performance appraisal form, final, November 19th, PDF. It's only got 3 lines. Good afternoon. Attached is the new performance evaluation form as approved by the personnel board at their November 13th, 2019 meeting. Please feel free to use this form for your employees moving forward. It's a great improvement over what we have had. Any questions, let me know. Thanks, Mark. Okay, so that's what we're talking about. So it went to department managers, not everybody that the board needed to reach. It says, please feel free to use the form. We can talk about that at the next meeting. I'll put this on the agenda. I think we need to send a little stronger message. This is the form approved by the board. 3, it did not include anything about the fact that this board only sees the cover sheet moving forward. And I think that's an important point, because when the board decided they were only going to see the cover sheets, one of the arguments was, and I believe Mr. Purple, and when I'm done in a minute, I'll let him speak if he wants. Mr. Purple was one of the people that advocated that managers could be more honest if they knew that the board wasn't going to see the whole review. So in going to the cover sheet, the idea was personnel board's not going to discuss it at the meeting. So managers, feel free to be more free in your comments. So my question is, this tool was supposed to help managers manage better, but how can it help them if they don't know how the personnel board is going to view it or use it? So, and lastly, it doesn't say that for the first year you're using this form, you need to attach the previous year's review. And that was something we discussed when we approved this on 11/13. You can look at the minutes, those are public record. Originally, this form, one of the drafts, said on it, there's a little field to check off, please include previous year's review. And we talked about it and realized that was only applicable to the first year, and it would be confusing, and we'd have to change the form for the second year. We were all tired of looking at the form. So we wanted to pass the form. We agreed to take that little field out. And Mr. Purple said he would make sure that reviewers knew that the personnel board needed to see the previous year's review just for the first year. And so obviously that didn't happen, and that will be an issue later on, what we want to do about that. So to sum up, I think it was necessary for me to have all these conversations. Thanks for listening while I updated you. I think we need to do a little better in the communications department. Working with Mark. Again, it's no fault of his. He sends the messages that he thinks are appropriate to the folks he thinks are appropriate. And if this board wants something else, we're supposed to exercise our guidance and oversight over him when and the terms guidance and oversight come right out of the TA bylaw. When Mr. Purple's wearing his personnel director hat, we're supposed to exercise guidance and oversight. So with your help, we'll do that a little more effectively in the future on the messaging. Thanks for listening. Couple other quick updates. Clerk's office. I talked to Jim Haggerty. I reviewed all our minutes from FY20 just to make sure we're following up on the things we said we would. Found a few mistakes in our minutes. I talked to Jim. We concurred they were what he calls Scrivener errors and nothing substantive. Don't require me to bring the minutes back to you to tell you I transposed a letter or a date. They don't change the meaning of the minutes. So I corrected and filed a few sets of minutes. And at Jim's suggestion, they include a footnote in the body of the minutes telling the reader what the reason it was corrected. Jim likes to see that. So these corrected minutes were posted in the usual place. Last update. Town clerk's office has a process. Apparently we haven't been following it for a while. We were posting all our documents in a board packet, but the clerk's office actually needs to see with the minutes that we file after the meeting, all the documents discussed at a meeting have to be filed with the minutes. So I'm working with the clerk's office. I've gotten us up to where we need to be on that with Amy. So moving forward, when we file minutes, I will also be sending all the documents that were referred to in the minutes. And that's everything I have on the chair's update. Anybody have any comments about the communication issue? I'll open it up before we move on to business.
Good.
Everybody good?
Yep.
Okay, so next item on the agenda is old business. And the first item I put on here, tuition reimbursement program. You have a copy of the tuition reimbursement policy in your packet. It's page 14 to 15. We passed this policy. It was enacted now because we have the new SAP. And as you can see in the document, if you look at Bates number 14, application process 3D. So previously, when the tuition reimbursement program was printed in the SAP, and this year, of course, we've taken it out and now it's in a policy for flexibility. We also decided that we didn't want to set an application deadline from year to year. We wanted to leave it flexible, and we would set the application deadline in the year that we were giving the tuition reimbursement. So, and we said it was the obligation of applicants to find out the deadline. And so we need to set the deadline for this year's tuition reimbursement applications. And I'll open it up to discussion.
What was the deadline last year?
August 31st.
Probably August 31st. Yeah. Typically, so we heard testimony. I don't know what to call it when people come and talk to us. We heard, I always say testimony like it's in a courtroom. We heard comments from at least one employee. that was sort of an outdated thing. When people went to physical classrooms, they signed up and classes started after Labor Day. So hence the August 31st deadline. And then we had the whole issue of, well, maybe someone's taking rolling classes and they don't know until January. And we
Right.
decided that was kind of unworkable. We have a certain sum of money that is allocated to tuition reimbursement. And how early in the year do you want to give people notice of what funds? Again, it's not a tuition funding program. This whole thing presumes that people have the means to take the classes, and it's only after they pass the class with a certain grade and documentation that they've paid for the class, we reimburse them. So you know, arguably somebody would only take the classes if they knew they were going to get reimbursement, but you know, I don't know how the board views it. You heard the same comments from employees last year, so.
Are we looking to do this on a fiscal year, or are we looking to do it on, I mean, like a calendar year, or are we looking to do it now that we're doing reviews January? Are we going to look at their July? Are we going to look at this from July to July of when they can get the money, or are we going to do it January to December?
It's a fiscal matter, Jay. It has to be done, my understanding is it has to be done within it always was done within the fiscal year. For example, we can't allocate money to people. We have a certain budget for this year. That can't cross over into FY '22.
Everything
So
has
they
to be
have to
paid in June.
submit their documentation by next June.
Everything has to be paid by June 30th, I believe. Mark, I
Yes.
don't know if that is correct.
There's a little leeway, maybe July 5th, 2021. But my understanding of this program, and Mark and Vanessa are welcome to chime in, because Vanessa's been at this a lot longer than I have. This program is announced every year. It's in the SAP, now it's in a policy. Sometime at the end of the summer, you award the grants subject to the documentation. The employees have all year to get it done. And then they come see us in June and say, we had those in the packet last week, you'll recall, with Ms. Sorensen and Ms. Danza. Although Ms. Danza has gotten her documentation in earlier, but they come to us by the end of the year and they say, we took the class, we got the requisite grade, here's proof of payment, and then the board authorizes payment. So that happens by June 30th. I'd like,
I'm sorry.
go ahead, Vanessa, please.
The feedback I have heard from a couple of folks is that, you know, so many institutions are, you know, moving away from a fall and a spring semester, you know,
Right.
especially right now, that it's difficult to know by August 31st if someone is going to be signing up and registering for a class, you know,
That-
up
that's-
through the next June.
That's exactly where I was going with that. You're absolutely right.
So if we go to a December 31st deadline, you'll have your fall courses and you should have picked your spring courses by then too. So if we go to December 31st, that should cover it for both semesters. And anybody who's rolling or on a trimester, that would also cover them for that.
But what about the person that's going to take just a random class that they could technically just take in March and it only lasts 2 or 3 weeks for a certification? Are they not going to be eligible because they didn't do it back in December?
Well, I don't think we can sit here and nitpick every single little instance that's going to happen, Jay. I think we have to look at what the general group is going to do and what the masses are going to do versus individuals. Because the policy won't work that way.
No,
We can't come up with every scenario that, oh, well, this course came up, I want to do that. I mean, that's not how it's going to work. So I would say if we go December 31st, that's going to hit most of the people. That should work for most people who are taking the college courses. And it hits trimesters, hits both semesters. I mean, it takes care of everybody. September definitely doesn't. I mean, August 31st definitely does not work.
no, I'm just trying to think of when I make the payments for my daughter's school for second semester, and I'm pretty sure it's way after December. I think it's more January, February.
But she knows her courses already. She already knows what she's going to be taking for her courses.
She
They have to
does.
sign up. They sign up for their courses.
Yeah, she's already signed up for her fall
Right,
classes.
so
three-
you've signed up for your courses,
months
you may
ago.
not be taking them right away, but you're already signed up and they're set to go before they come home for, you know, the winter break.
Yeah.
So they already know what they're taking. So December 31st would cover those people.
Anybody else?
I mean, I agree. I don't think we can worry about every situation that could possibly arise. It's going to be arbitrary however we do it. So it's a matter of picking a date that we think includes as many possibilities as we can. And it's also true, I think, that someone can take a class, finish it, and then seek reimbursement. Right?
Right, if there's still money left.
Right. No, that's not how the program has worked. There's an application deadline. So if I refer you to the policy we passed, if you're not happy with it, and I've already heard from one board member who wants to put it back on the agenda for August, but right now, this is how the policy stands. The employee and the manager meet and they create an individual development plan. All right. And I remember Mr. Dietz telling us this should not be any hardship or any news to them because employees and managers should be doing this anyway. Am I correct, Jay?
Yeah,
Okay. And the requirement that we grafted on for the first time is that the class be related to the plan. So now when people come before us and we're deciding these, whether it's October or December or March, whenever we do it, we're going to say, hey, what's your individual plan and how does this class work into it? And then they'll have an application. We'll award based on the pot, based on what we see. And then everyone will go back and take their classes. And then if they come to us in June, the deadline is to apply so that we can grant the money. The come back to us and make sure we have your documentation so you actually get your check. That's not the application deadline. But we should tell people you got to come back in June. But the application deadline is understood as the deadline by which you have to apply for the grant so that we can, last year it was 3 or 4 recipients and we split the pot in a way that we thought was fair. And then everyone went off and some took their classes and some did not. So, and is that clear?
Betsy, we have to receive those requests once they've taken the course. All the paperwork that they need to get reimbursed, we have to have it by June because the town has to pay the bills. They have to pay all that money out by June 30th, or we lose that money. It goes back to the general fund because it wasn't paid out during that fiscal year. So we need to make sure they understand there is a deadline that they have to get that to us. And it has to be paid by June. So I wouldn't say get it to us by June 30th because it has to be paid by June 30th. The check has to be cut. Mark, am I correct? Or Brian, am I correct on that?
There's a bit of leeway, Dorian. We dealt with a request 2 weeks ago on
Yeah.
July 1st for Ms. Sorensen. But yes, ideally by June 3rd, there's a few days into the new year
Okay.
if you encumber the money. So you raise an excellent point. We did not include that in the tuition reimbursement policy, and we should have, perhaps, okay? We can say, oh, we'll put it in the message when we send out the email, but really everything should be in the policy. So I've had a request to put this back on the agenda and we can fix it up and send it out revised, but we can't talk about revisions to the policy right now. The only thing I put on the agenda, I wasn't aware that people wanted to revisit it. It's a great discussion. Don't mean to shut it down. It's not on the agenda. I will put revisions to tuition. And we can add that, Dorian,
Okay.
in August. But the thing we have to decide today is application deadline. And I don't know if anyone's listening, but that's what we put on the agenda that we would decide. But great point. And this year, we actually had an applicant who almost missed the deadline. And it was through the good graces of Ms. Danza that I realized that. And we explained that at the last meeting, and I won't go through that situation again. So suffice to say, good point, Dorian. Please draft an amendment for the tuition reimbursement policy to include the deadline that you wanted to have. I guess, Vanessa, reasonable deadline would be for the June board meeting.
Yeah, I would say so.
Okay,
Yeah,
so again, that puts the
typically
onus, that would
yeah,
put the onus on the applicant to see when we're meeting in June.
Yeah, there is, as you said earlier, there is leeway the first week of July to pay out FY20 payments. If necessary, we can encumber something that gives us a little bit more leeway, but yes, ideally, the town accountant's office would much prefer to, have everything done by the last day of June.
And we don't know exactly when we'll meet in June. So Dorian, if you want to think that through and bring us a proposal next week, in next month, that would be great. So in the meantime, we have a proposal on the table to make the application deadline for the grants for December 31st.
Would it be any different if we made it January 31st? Just to give people, in case they decide, it just gives that extra month. It's not going to hurt anything either which way for payment wise, their classes, just because if they decide to take a class in January and classes don't start until mid to end January, they could still easily take the class.
Well, if the deadline is January 31st, then we're not doing the grants till our February meeting. Because you have to distinguish between a board deciding something and Vanessa or Mark deciding something. The board does the granting. So in the case where an administrator is making the decision, you could tell everybody, submit it to Ms. Hale or Mr. Purple by January 31st. They can decide whenever they want. These are decided in an open meeting by us. So just so you know, if you say January 31st, it rolls into our February meeting.
Okay.
It's too
Or
late.
if we're meeting the first week in February, we wouldn't have the document. We would have filed the packet,
So then if that's the case, if we do it December 31st, that goes into the January meetings where their classes would have already started and they may not take the classes if they're not approved. So we really should be making this November 31st. So they'll know if it's approved before they start their classes in January.
well, to the opposite case, if someone wanted to start a class in December, I imagine there's still people who do that. I have a daughter who's doing classes in September. If you would say that that person wouldn't have started the classes if they hadn't had the grant, then we need to back it up to August again.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, it's going to just go on forever.
That's
Yeah.
why we just have to pick a date. That's why I thought end of the year, December 31st just works. And if you don't fall into that, I mean, this is reimbursement. You're paying for your courses anyway. If you can't afford to pay for your courses, you're not going to be relying on this reimbursement to do that.
But the timing should be tied into the successful completion of the course, not just the enrollment, right?
Right. Yeah, they have to give us their final grade. It has to be a B or better.
Okay,
Right.
guys, let's not get confused. There's two issues. We look at the applications and we give what I call a grant. The documentation and the payout is later. It's just not that it's not important, but we're talking right now about the deadline by which they apply. Employee sits down with their manager, discusses a plan, says, hey, boss, or the boss says, I'd like you to take this course. They discuss the pursuit of a specific class or degree in connection with the development plan. They fill out an application and they bring it to us and we say it, and they come to our meeting. It's going to probably be virtual this year. And we ask them some questions and then we divvy up the pot. And then they go and they take their classes. Sometime later, they have to get the documentation and proof of grade to us, okay?
Right.
So two separate times that we see them.
I think we should go with the December 31st date for the deadline.
All right,
Vote on that.
the chair will entertain a motion? Sure. Is there any further discussion on this?
So just one last part. So if we do go December 31, they won't know if they're approved until mid-January,
Yes, sir.
right? Because I'm just wondering if that's going to defer them to take a class or not. If they can't afford to do it on their own, then they would have missed the class by the time we actually approve it.
Just to give a little
what I
history
mean?
on this.
I don't want to go into like another whole 10-minute.
Yeah,
debate on
when
it
I got
again.
on the board, there was no mechanism for notifying anybody of anything. I asked Vanessa what the history of this benefit was. It sat in the SAP and with an August 31st deadline, and employees who read the SAP knew about it. Personnel board didn't, Vanessa, Mark, you can correct me if I'm wrong. Nobody sent out emails about it. One employee a year tapped into it who was fortunate enough to know about it. So I think we've taken huge strides. We've made it more
August,
accessible.
Right, so sorry, if it was August and we moved it to November 31st, I just think that people should know if they got approved before they actually take the class and spend the money. Because
But
they
you
may
can't
not
do
take the
that.
class if they, well, if we did it as a November 31 day, they'd know in December before they start their classes, because if they got declined, they may say, I don't have the extra $2,500 to take the classes, and they might pull out.
What about September enrollees? I just said there's September enrollees.
Yeah, I mean, as long as they notify us before before November 31.
But they won't, Jay, if someone's
They
signing
still
up for a
won't.
class, the traditional route, and I have a, I don't know how to make it clearer. Someone may be signing up for classes to start in September. And by your reasoning, if we move it to November or December, that person won't know. So they're prejudiced vis-a-vis the second semester people.
So those people, even if we made it December 31, those September people wouldn't know until January anyways.
No, September
Right.
people know if you do it by August 31st.
Right.
I haven't gotten any in the 3 years I've been on the board, the only feedback we got was the same feedback you all heard from Ms. Esposito about making sure it was fair, that everybody got the same notice, that it went out to SAP employees. And again, I don't want to impute to, I specifically remember Ms. Esposito's guidance being just make it fair. If you have a certain pot, make it available to everyone. If you increase the pot, let everybody know you increase the pot.
Right.
So I don't want to spend any more time on this. I look back as I did the minutes of the last meeting. I think sometimes in the interest of being egalitarian, I let things go on a little too long. I'm a talker, I like to let people talk. I don't know that further discussion will be fruitful. So I think I would like to entertain a motion. We have someone has a counter proposal. We did have an idea on the table that it would, a date on the table of December.
To make a motion to give a tuition reimbursement application deadline of December 31st.
All right. Are we ready to vote? I don't want to keep anybody from making a comment, but I just don't know that if anybody has anything new to say. All right. So this will be a roll call vote. Mr. Dietz?
Yes.
I think you need a second.
Yeah,
Oh,
nobody's.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
We have a motion for December 31st for the application deadline. Do I hear a second? Thank you, Dave.
I'll second the motion.
All right. Mr. Dietz?
Jay Dietz, yes.
Ms. Jazinski?
Diane Jasinski, yes.
Mr. Nixon?
Yes. Mr. Nixon, yeah.
Thank you. Mr. Rubenstein?
Barry Rubenstein, yes.
And Ms. Rosenblum votes in the affirmative. Thank you, everybody. And don't worry, you'll see this again back on the table. So, and just as a follow-up, talking about communications, this will be a perennial thing I'll come back to. I will send out a notice to SAP employees, to the updated distribution list on the Town of Southborough email, telling them that the grant application deadline has been set for 12/31/20. All right. And that the application should be sent to Vanessa and myself, and that the board will vote on them at its January meeting. It works for you guys?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you all very much. Next item on our agenda is the employee performance evaluation synchronization. The reason we all came today. So you have a bunch of the old paperwork. I just keep putting it in here, and you've seen these things before. In case anybody doesn't easily access previous board packets, the discussion continues. I put the documents in. You have a new document at Bates 8 and 9, a discussion draft from Mr. Dietz, Mr. Rubenstein, and Mr. Ballantyne. That's new. And also a companion document that I sent out the other day. Just it's the SAP employee census, where I tracked what we did with FY20 reviews. That was filed as a supplement to the packet, so it doesn't have a number. So I don't know if anybody had any questions. That was just something I put together to see where we were at with FY20 as we move forward to FY21. And I open up the floor to, oh, Vanessa, do we have Mr. Ballantyne with us today?
We do, yes.
Excellent. Welcome, Mr. Ballantyne. So I would give the floor to Mr. Dietz, Mr. Rubenstein, or Mr. Ballantyne to discuss their draft for synchronization. And with thanks from the board for putting this together. Many thanks.
I guess I'll start. So the three of us had a meeting where we sort of went over our respective understandings of what we were trying to do here. And I think we were pretty much on the same page on everything. Let me start by saying there's no way to do this that's neat and simple and fair to everybody. It just isn't. So you have to figure out some way of doing it that gets us to a point at the beginning of the next fiscal year where everybody will be in the same place. So that's what we tried to do. And where it gets tricky is for people who were reviewed in the last quarter or so before July 1. How are you going to treat those people? And looking at the list that Betsy put together, turns out there are very few people in that situation. I mean, I think maybe less than 5 who have review dates in that period. So the vast majority of people, it's sort of business as usual, other than the fact that they're going to be reviewed sooner than they would have been if we didn't go to the synchronization. And what we came upon for the other people, and I think this is made even more complicated by the fact that we're in the pandemic and people are not, or for most of the period from March to the end of the fiscal year, we're not in the office. And so evaluating them during that period, I think is difficult even in the best of times. So what we said was for those people, if really nothing has changed, we're not going to require you to do a new evaluation for the July 1 date. If something has changed, either they went above and beyond in that period, then feel free to submit a new evaluation or an updated one, or on the other end of the spectrum, if they just stop working in that period, you can do the same. So that's what we tried to do on the evaluation side. On the pay increase side, I think we just tried to articulate what certainly my understanding was that Brian had proposed some months ago. And that is that if your review date is July 1st, there's no change, you'll get the full increase. If your review date was other than that, your increase will be prorated so that you receive over the course of the year from July 1 to June 30th, you receive the same amount of increase that you would have received if you received it on your anniversary date, whether it's in February or September or whatever it is. So that's what we tried to accomplish. And with that, welcome any input from Jay or Brian in terms of anything I haven't covered.
Yeah, no, you did a good job, Barry. I'll just add that the spreadsheet for everyone's rate increases is almost done. I actually finished it, but I want Kristen to look through and double check all the numbers because there's about 60 people, I think, or somewhere thereabouts with all these changes. So I just wanted the board to know that it's pretty much done. It's close, but Kristen has to, again, review.
Hey, Jess? I lost my Zoom picture. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, hang on a second. I went to turn, no, I'm back. Thanks, don't need you. I don't know what I'll do when she moves out someday, but I just went to turn the speaker up to hear Brian and, anyway, I apologize. Please continue, sorry.
Oh, no, that's all I wanted to say. I just, because it's important to note that is a important document we're gonna have to use when we do reviews, but it's close to being done. So that's it.
Thank you, Brian. All right, so for the participants, Mr. Dietz, do you have anything you want to add to what Barry has said?
No, I think he said it
Okay.
perfectly fine and nice and compact.
Okay. I do have a few comments and questions for gentlemen, but I'll defer to the end as chair, Dorian or Dave, the non-draftees, if you want to go first. I talk way too much in these meetings, so Dave and Dorian, if you have anything, or if you want to wait and see if I cover it in mine, because whatever, however you want to proceed.
Go ahead.
All right, Dorian, do you want me to go ahead or do you want to go first?
I just have a couple of quick questions. So
Sure.
when we start this off, were we talking about based on anniversary date? I thought we had a discussion where we were not using anniversary date. There was some confusion as to whether we're using hire date or anniversary date. I'm looking at a policy, so I'm just asking, did that change that we decided to use anniversary date versus the hire date?
Well, I don't think we use the term anniversary date in here, do we?
Yeah,
You do.
this first line, based on anniversary date for each employee. Could be any time throughout the year based on the hire date or the job change. I'm not really understanding that first line. It's very confusing to me. We're referring to all the terminology. They're supposedly very different dates. So I need a little bit of clarification on that because it's just extremely confusing to me.
Well, and
Gentlemen,
that's
I
just-
also had the same question.
It
Barry,
doesn't make sense.
just so you can, because I had the same question, but a little bit of background. Anniversary date appears in the SAP. I had a proposal to change that. Jay told us anniversary date never changes. It's
Right.
always the date that the person was hired,
It's the date they started
work.
start working. And then we had
working.
that.
Hire date and anniversary date are two completely different things.
Okay, and Jay said he wanted to revisit that, but that was the week before town meeting, and I said we can't revisit anniversary date. So that will be on the agenda for August to take a look at this, but if we're doing this policy now, I think that moves the discussion up. When we passed synchronization, when we voted to approve it, we specifically said it's the performance review date or the performance evaluation date. So I shared Dorian's confusion about the use of the term anniversary date in this context. Just wanted to
Okay,
say
and
that.
If I can just respond, this is referring to history. This is not talking about going forward. This is talking about how it's been done.
Oh, all right.
This is a section sort of explaining why we're doing it. And so-
Okay.
First line is just saying it has been done based on the anniversary date. which
Well,
could
that
have been
helps
any
the
time through the
clarification.
year.
That helps, Barry. Thank you. Because I didn't. Okay, now, we have had, I believe, 16 reviews, maybe 18 reviews since March with the new form during COVID, with the one-page review. We have yet to receive the previous year's review with any of them. We have not received anything that we requested. It was part of the entire change to the whole way we reevaluated all the employees every year. We have yet to receive any of those. We need to receive those. Those have not been done. And what I don't want to see is these reviews get redone and the new ones get done and we are not seeing the previous year. I'm just going to nullify and say no raise until we get the documentation, because this is a very clear request. This was part of what we had agreed to in order to understand whether that employee actually deserved the raise. With changing this whole thing, there's a lot of confusion. So that was something we had requested, and it has not been done on 16 occasions. That's not acceptable. That cannot continue that way. It has to be redone.
Okay, but if,
So
if,
we need that stated in here. They have to do that. That has to be very clear. And
I
I
think
know we'll
if you-
have to change it the next year, Barry. I know we'll have to change it because we won't have to have that review. But it's not been done so far.
but it's specifically required in this document. So for those people, assuming there's not a new review done, we're going to see a new cover page and a full review that was done for May.
Right.
It would be 2019. It would be the previous
No, it's
year's
going to be,
review.
well, for
That was
those
the
people
long
will
form.
see the May 20, the one we approved, the May 2020, the underlying review, we'll
Right.
get that, plus a cover page for the next year.
Sorry.
I could
Right.
just step in because I think I know where Dorian's coming from, but having done this census, and I'd like to, Dorian, if we could keep our comments with reference to the policy when you asked for something. So I'm looking under new system to be implemented, bullet point 2. I think this is where Dorian is. Any employee who has had a recent review between March 1st and June 30th. And my little comment is, gentlemen, could you just add 2020 to it? I think anytime we're doing this, we have to have the full year. Any employee who's had a recent review between March 1st and June 30, 2020. Department head has discretion, or if the last review is material the same, resubmit the completed one along
Yep.
with a new cover page. So that would be the completed new form that you
Right.
gave before, along with a new cover page. But all the board and along with the full evaluation done in March. That doesn't say the FY19 evaluation.
We don't need
Yeah.
to ever see the 1919, about the 2019 evaluations though.
Yes, we
Yes,
do.
we do, Jay. That's exactly what we said we needed to see because we're only gonna, okay, if I could just, I think I have the big picture and I want to ask the questions. So we can get to, this is where we got hung up on it before. So and I appreciate very much that this draft is in front of us and it highlights the question that Dorian has and that I have. Okay. First of all, the new form where we just saw the cover sheet wasn't phased in March. We have employees going back to November that we got a cover sheet with the new one and no previous review. If you look at my census, the first person would be number 4, happens to be Vanessa. Her FY20 raise was approved in December. And as you can see, I have the field here for new form. Oh, sorry, it's one of the fields came out without, so across the top, I have number, department name, whether they're full-time or part-time, who reviewed them, their hire date from payroll, when we approved their raise, that would be the date of the meeting, whether it was a 6-month review with an X, and then that field that doesn't have anything in the heading, that's the raise effective date. So Mark came in with Vanessa's review. In December, he used the new form. All the board saw was the cover sheet. They didn't see the previous review. Okay, Vanessa would not be brought in under this March to June. Okay, she would be any employee whose last review was previous to March. They do a new evaluation. The department head submits the new review cover sheet and the previous full review. Okay. So we would see the full review for Vanessa from FY19, correct? That's what you intended?
Previous year's review, which would be 2019. the
Now, I'm
long
asking the
form.
gentleman who drafted this, Dorian, give me,
Oh,
please.
sorry. but you
This is
was
really
asking.
hard to do via Zoom.
We're
Okay.
going to get a brand new cover sheet and the evaluation that was done in November.
Okay, so go to somebody, because she's previous to March. Go to the case of somebody who was done in March. And the first person on the list, I see, who's full-time, let's not deal with probationary right now, is Lori Esposito. We did her raise. She was one of that big group on May 20th, okay? New form, we just saw a cover sheet, no FY19 attached. So Lori falls into the any employee who had a recent review. So Mark would be directed, if nothing has changed, to submit the completed one that he did for Lori. That's the new form, the whole thing, with a new cover page, along with the full evaluation done in March 2020. But that doesn't refer to her previous full evaluation. So my question is, are you asking reviewers to give the full, are we going to be looking at the full new review? Are we still going to be looking at cover sheets with the old review? What did you intend?
I'm completely confused now.
I know, so let me, I know, Barry, I'm with you. So let me just
Well, it's
reiterate this.
confusing. That's why I asked that it be written out.
Hold on,
We
let
had
me-
a
let me go
procedure
back
that-
one- Let
Okay.
me go back one piece. This is not going to take place now until 2021, not 2020. So realistically, any review in 19 is kind of irrelevant at this point. So if everybody that's going to get their review is going to be within 2020, because now we're looking an entire year ahead. So
Okay, you
if
lost me. You gave us a proposal for March. You gave us a proposal for July 1st, 20. That's what I'm looking
Yeah.
at. You've changed that since you did the draft?
No,
What is Jay saying then?
Jay has to explain what he's saying. I'm not in the same place on that. I think what the policy says is what I intended. And again, well, you're looking at Laurie Esposito, but her review date wasn't it November?
That was the raise effective date. I'm sorry, that wasn't in the fields. Okay, so
Okay,
let's get this straight. Looking at my SAP employee census, the
Right.
headings, there's one missing, the top of the page. See, missing
Right.
heading. That is raise effective date.
Okay, but. and
So
we can-
Lori came to see, it. Mark gave us her review May. We approved it and it was retro. So all I'm trying to say, and I'm not trying to confuse it, is regardless of how we roll out the synchronization, we saw cover sheets only for, Dorian said 16. I don't know, you can count them. They're on my census. 16, 18, whatever it was, a couple of dozen, 2 to 3 dozen reviews came to us on the new form with just the cover sheet, as we agreed, and we were supposed to have the old review attached. Whether we implement this now or next year, we are entitled to see those, and we never saw them. And Dorian is saying that's a problem for her, and she needs to see them.
Well, I would say a couple of things. One is shame on us. We approved the increases without them. So to draft the
Yes.
policy to fix something that we screwed up, I think is, I don't know, that's problematic. Secondly, we are going to see the full last review that was done in fiscal year
2020,
1920.
20.
right?
We are going to see that full review.
Yep.
So I'm
Even
not
if it's
sure-
on the new form, Barry, we're gonna see the full review, even though we said we weren't before.
Because it's the last one that was done.
Right. We're
Okay.
not looking at reviews this year. We're not looking at the 19 reviews. Everything that this is going to do is for 2021. So we're going to look at everybody's 2020 review. If they got a review in March of 2021, we'll see their 2020 review and the prior 6 months if they need to change it.
So Jay, where does this discussion draft say 2021? I see July 1st, 20.
When we make the change, it's going to be 2021.
That's not what the discussion draft says, and I think Barry indicated he was confused by that and not in the same place.
Yeah, I mean, my understanding was we're going to implement this. That's why we have the 7/24 date in here. Because it's happening this year.
I thought it was discussed that we can't pull it off this year because it's too quick.
That was on the 0 to 3% increase. We decided we couldn't do both the synchronization and the increase at the same time. So that's why we said we'll put off doing that, but we're going to do the synchronization now.
Okay, then that's on me. I thought we weren't doing the synchronization either. I thought there was one discussion that just said we couldn't pull it all together. It's already July 15th. And there's no way we could have pulled it first for July 1st. So the synchronization was going to move to 2021.
Just as a general rule, that's what the draft minutes in your packet are for, because we all walk away from the meeting. And I know when I listen to the recording, and now it's easy, it's on Zoom. If you have any questions, you don't even have to wait for my minutes. Traditionally, you had to wait for the minutes. You can watch these on Zoom, but Barry is correct. We said we were going to forego the range. We re-voted the 2.8. That's in my emails that are in the packet. And the minutes say we're going to focus on synchronization. And you guys are going to get together and give us something to work off of. So
I have a question. I'm going to throw more fire on this, into this discussion. These reviews that they're going to be doing are for this new raise that's happening, that's effective July 1st. By the way, that was 2 weeks ago now. If we're doing what Jay's saying, and we're gonna do not do it till 21, we're only gonna get the cover page that's being done now, not the previous year. The last real review of all these employees is 2019. Because in 2020, they've already started doing the short form. There's no more long review. The year of review that we want to see is 2019. There's no long review for 2020. We're using the new form already, guys. We need to see the 2019 review in its entirety when they do the new reviews. And we're already missing some of them since November. And yes, Barry, you are right. We did this without that. I understand. But they're all going to have to get redone anyway for the July 1st. And I don't know how we're handling the raises with the people who are just got done. And now there's a new raise when they just got their raise. That's a whole new thing. But no, we need the 2019 review. That's the one I want to see, the long form, the old way with the new way, with the single page.
But you are going to see, you said it's just the cover page, the 2020 form, we're going to see the whole form, the whole review, not just the cover page.
No, we've already started just doing the cover page though,
No.
Barry.
That's all we have seen, but they do an underlying review. There's a whole document on the form that Jay and Mark developed. They're still completing that whole form. They're
Right.
not just doing the cover page.
But we haven't seen it and we are supposed to see it this year. That's my point.
And
That
we
was
will see it. That's what I'm saying. We will see it.
okay. Well, we
Right.
haven't. And
Right.
that's why I'm saying there's a piece of this that is missing that we had agreed to, that we were supposed to be seeing that long form.
Okay.
and we
Brianne,
haven't.
I'm gonna cut you off because I think you've made it abundantly clear. And I made it clear on my form, and I don't think we need to keep saying we didn't see the FY19 reviews and we were supposed to. As Barry noted, that's on us. We approved,
I agree.
we approved the new form in November. We never sent notice to Mark sent notice to department heads and he didn't mention it and we didn't follow up. At the very least, moving forward, when Mark sends out a message to department heads about a personnel board matter, I would request that he copy me on it. But I did not circle back around to him. Nobody on the board said, hey, what message did we send? Barry's right, this is on us. So I want to get it straight moving forward. So if we look at bullet point 2, we see that for any employee who was reviewed between March and June of this year, we're going to see the full evaluation, and it says done in March, but I think you mean March to June, Jay? Is that what you meant?
Say March to
Yep.
June.
Okay. And Dorian, under this, you would see the full evaluation, which is the new one, the new Town of Southborough form, the full evaluation. It would not have attached to it the FY19. Is that correct, Jay and Barry?
Right.
You gave up on the FY19 in favor of seeing the full FY20. So I think
Right.
that's a policy decision for the board. And Dorian, I understand you want the FY19. So if you don't agree with that, this is where you say, okay, I don't agree with that. I still want to see FY19.
If we're
But
gonna
I'm
do
gonna-
the long form of the 2020, the whole enchilada, not just a cover page, That's fine, but I haven't seen one of those since.
We understand what you haven't seen. What they are, what I'm trying to.
Betsy, I understand. I get it. I just want the long form of whatever it is. If it's 2020, that's fine. But we haven't seen
Gotcha.
any of those yet. That's why I'm using 2019 as a reference point. But Barry,
Understood
I agree that,
completely.
okay.
I just want to try to bridge the gap between your concerns and what is on this page that they have proposed. And now we have an issue that Jay is talking about 2021 and Barry is still in 2020. And that is an issue. So if anyone wants to speak to that, I'm not trying to chill the conversation. I'm just trying to not keep repeating the same points.
Is Brian still on?
Yes.
Brian, what did you think? I mean, were you thinking 2021 or were you thinking synchronize everybody now? Like,
Yeah, no, and I'm sorry, maybe there was confusion. It's it's July 1st. So it is, of course, 21. So yes, I was, I think I was with Barry. Maybe Jay, you didn't misunderstood me and Barry. So yeah, we were thinking the whole merit piece, the 1 to 3%, or that whole conversation, that is a conversation for another day. But the synchronization was always going to be July 1st of 2020, which was 2 weeks ago. That was my understanding, and I think it's actually fairly straightforward, even though it doesn't seem it at the moment. It's more my opinion on the sticky part was this whole review and what the board wanted to see, and do they want to see the last review and all that portion, which really doesn't have a whole lot to do with me personally, but and I really don't have an opinion on it, to be honest, but I did understand it to be July 1st for the synchronization. So I think Barry and myself were probably understanding that.
all right, then that works. I'm fine with that.
Betsy, I just wanted to note that there's a question from the audience. When you
Sure.
want to
Board
keep-
members want to keep talking or take a question?
I'm fine
I'm
taking the
okay.
question.
Take the
It-
question.
Who is
Okay,
it?
It's Paul Sabelli.
Okay, sure. Go ahead, Paul.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yep. As I just wanted to clarify, we seem to be bouncing back. And this also goes to the pay increase, the first bullet. We basically shelved, you guys had, Betsy and I had made the recommendation that you shelve the whole merit portion. What we're doing is just the synchronizing, and you voted it at a standard 2.8, not a manager's pay recommendation increase up to 2.8. It was 2.8. The entire merit portion is not happening until next year. That's what you voted. And that's alluded to in lines 124-ish in your minutes or thereabouts before you jump to a different piece of business, and then you jumped back. You voted to shelve the 0 to 3% for 2%, 2.8%. And it was a solid 2.8 for this year.
Thank you, Paul. You done?
Yep.
Yeah, so if everybody looks at, this is, Paul is correct. It's in the minutes. I hope people are reading the minutes. I'm sure you are. And then in my email that went out to, that's page 5. Okay, that had the attachment. I hope you saw the it had 4 attachments. And one was a memo. Did everybody see that? Maybe I need to start printing all of this. If you look at page 5, the memo I sent out to department heads and managers, all the managers, included a memo, and it said 2.8, we're not doing the ranges, too complicated. Did everybody open the attachments to the memo, to the email?
Yep.
Okay, so we're all on the same page. Thank you, Paul. So where we're at is, Jay, you're in agreement that this can be implemented effective July 1st, 2020, although not on July 1st, obviously.
Yeah.
You're good with that. Okay.
Yep.
So I think what we need to do, Dorian, let's just go line by line and make sure everybody's good with it. Performance evaluation synchronization. Dorian, you're good with the use of anniversary date?
Yep,
Okay. On this new system to be implemented, I would request that it be revised to say March 1 to June 3rd, 2020 for clarity.
June
Okay.
30th.
2020. I would take out the use of the word recent. Recent is subjective. I could say yesterday was recent, 3 months ago. I'd just say any employee who had a review between March 1st and June 30, 2020. Is that agreeable?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So they're going to resubmit the completed one with a new cover page reflecting the recommended increase, if any, along with the full evaluation done, and you're going to amend that to March through June 2020, right?
Yep.
Okay. Any employee who, so for those folks, we're going to get the full new review. The
Right.
people who were reviewed prior to March 20, and again, on the third bullet point, any employee whose last review was previous to March, I'd make that March 1 and add 2020. Department head will complete a new evaluation, because those are a little older. The department head will submit the new review cover sheet and the previous full review, no later than July 24, 2020. Dorian, are you good with that?
Yep,
Okay. Then on the last bullet point, all reviews and cover sheets are required for the personnel board packet and should be sent to Vanessa. Please add and Betsy Rosenblum. Vanessa Hale and Betsy Rosenblum. So you recall that when we went to just seeing the cover sheet, and I know this is different because we're going to be seeing reviews. When the board sees just the cover sheet in the packet, you don't even see who the reviewer is. Okay? We decided that somebody on behalf of the board needed to see the whole thing to make
Right.
sure that the comments and the grade and the raise lined up. Under this, only Vanessa's going to see the cover sheets. Vanessa's terrific, but she's not the chair of the personnel board and she doesn't represent the personnel board. If it's the intent of this board that you still have somebody seeing all reviews in all cases to screen them on behalf of the board, that's me. I don't know if that's all agreed or a discussion point. But to this point, when we've been getting the new reviews on the new form and the board packet just has a cover sheet, I've been getting the whole review. Vanessa sends it to me as well. And I've been looking at the full thing to make sure. Otherwise, nobody has eyes on it on behalf of the board. So do you want those to continue to come to me in all cases? It seems like
Yes.
it should, but that,
Yes.
I don't know
Yes.
why that was excluded.
That works for me.
Yep.
Okay. All right. One other thing that we talked about that I did not see here, this was early on when we went to the new system. Mr. Rubenstein made the point that he wanted the messaging to be clear so that no employee would think they were losing any compensation under the new system. And I don't know that that's in here. A statement to the effect to employees, hey, this may sound complicated, but you're getting the same compensation as if we never changed the old system. We're just doing it a little differently. Is that addressed? Was that part of your discussion? And is that in here somewhere?
I think it is in example number 2 under pay increases, under both really, because the first one says if you have a July 1 date, nothing changes. You're going to get the same increase. And the second one explains how you're going to get the same amount you would have gotten even if the date of review had remained the same.
So was it the intention of this group of you guys that these examples would be included in the message to the employees? I thought maybe they were just for me so I would understand.
No, I think employees should see that so they're not confused by what's happening.
Right.
Okay, great. Thank you. I think that's it for me with those changes. Anybody else?
Nope.
Yes, Vanessa.
I just wanted to ask the board about the July 24th, 2020 date that's listed. I think that is going to be really hard for folks to meet that deadline that would only be a week from Friday.
Point taken. gentlemen?
Do we just move it to the 31st?
Well, I think technically what would have to happen, if I understand this properly, that anyone prior to who had their review prior to March 1, 2020, they need to, complete a new review now. And just with, summer schedules and vacations and the fact that we're staggered still at 50% of our staff, I'm concerned that not every review could be done by the end of July.
Do you have a date that you would recommend?
I'm going to ask Mark to weigh in because he reviews a lot of these performance reviews and some of them are dependent on his participation. So, Mark, what do you think about the deadline?
When is the personnel board set a meeting date for August?
Yes, August 12th, Mark.
Yeah, I mean, it's gonna be a little bit tight, I think, vacation wise and everything anyway. The only good point is that being in a virtual environment, as Vanessa said, being staggered. So if I was reviewing Vanessa, we're not in the office at the same time, we'd probably schedule a Zoom call and do the review that way. So I think that may make things a little bit easier, but it's still doing the actual review. I would have said the week of August 10th, but that then conflicts. You're not going to get anything for your August 12th meeting. So whatever would work for you, Betsy, in terms of when you want to put your packets together and you want all that information.
Can I ask the drafters, the gentleman who put this together, because I don't do reviews, so I want to be sensitive. Was there a reason you chose July 24th? I understand we're going to make the raises retro. That's the number part. Thank you, Brian. Could this be something they could have a couple of months to do and get it in the September packet?
Yeah, I mean, there's no magic in my mind to the July 24th. I think Brian suggested it, but
Yeah.
I mean, my instinct would be to give them more time than just so that whole speech I gave about communication, right? Brian has already told us, thanks, Brian. The managers haven't gotten any messaging from us on synchronization. Mark didn't send out anything to his department heads. We've sent out nothing to chairs. I've been chasing around just making a list of chairs. We've sent them nothing. To send them something today and say, you have 3 weeks to put together reviews for an August packet. If it doesn't harm the system, I would do, in time for our September meeting.
I would agree to that. I think that's right.
Does
Yeah,
that make
that works.
sense? Does
That works.
anybody have a date for Labor Day? When's Labor Day this year?
I think it's the 5th
Labor Day
or the
is,
7th. I think it's the 7th.
all right. So I know it's always problematic to schedule a meeting right before a holiday. Normally we'll file a packet on a Thursday or a Friday, but if Monday's a holiday, so looking ahead at a calendar, maybe we meet on the 16th. So everybody can get stuff into us the week before.
Of September?
Oh, thank you. Ryan Donovan is telling us that Labor Day is Monday, September 7th. Thank you, Mr. Donovan.
Yeah, to the chair, there is also a question from Ryan. He raised his hand.
Sure, just 1 minute. So if we were looking to calendar a meeting, maybe we would avoid the week of the holiday. I just know, and Vanessa can probably back me up, putting a packet together around a holiday weekend is always problematic. Because people take time off and whatnot, right? Vanessa, are you there?
Correct.
Oh, she's shaking her
Yes.
head. Okay. So if we're shooting to meet on September 16th,
I'm not available on the 16th.
is everybody else available on Wednesday, the 16th?
That's so far away. I
Well,
don't know if anything's going to get scheduled, but as of right now, I'm wide open.
Why
All
don't
right.
we meet the first week of September? The
No,
holiday
because-
isn't until the Monday.
what we're what I think, I'm looking ahead, big picture, we're looking at people on vacation in July and August. You're telling them to catch up on this whole new thing with reviews. I want to give them sufficient time to do that. And after Labor Day seems appropriate to me.
Betsy, are people really going on vacations? I mean, we've got COVID right now. Most people
They're
aren't. even
taking,
back to work.
they're taking time off, Vanessa. I don't know, maybe, Dorian, maybe Mark can speak to that. I assume employees are still taking time off.
How many weeks do we have to
Yes.
give them to do reviews?
Okay, maybe I'm headed in the wrong direction. Correct me.
I
10
would say
weeks
just
to
get
do
the
a-
review done. Just
I
get
don't
it
know
done
why
in the
you need
next 2
10
weeks.
weeks to do a review. That doesn't make sense to me. That
Just get it
Okay.
done in the next, why can't it get done in the next 2 weeks?
it doesn't make sense to have
If
10
somebody's
weeks.
on vacation for a week, it still gives them another week. They have 2 weeks in advance. It's not going to take them more than an hour or two to actually get the review, especially if they've, I mean, I don't know. It's just, me.
Okay.
I don't think it should take 10 weeks. I'm with you.
We should be
Right.
able to
Can you
get the
guys hear
reviews
me?
in August.
I
There's
agree. There's no
there's
reason.
no
why.
reason to have 10 weeks to do reviews. I'm
No.
sorry. That's part of your job. You're the manager. You should be able to sit down and do the job.
I agree.
Okay. Mr. Donovan had a comment. Vanessa, if we could turn him on.
I brought him over, yes. Go ahead,
Okay.
Ryan.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
We
Yeah.
can, thank you.
Hi, so I know we're talking about, it's not one review that I have to do, Dorian. I mean, I think I have to do something like 15 reviews. So that's gonna take me a little bit longer, I think, than other department heads. So not to use me as the example, but I would just say, I mean, giving me until September gives me, I think, adequate time to do all of the reviews that I need to do. So,
You don't need almost a week, Ryan, to do a review per person. I mean, that's what I'm saying. It shouldn't take more than a few hours to do a review of an employee that you've been working with for a year. I just see a very different perspective. I was in the business world. I know what it takes to do these things. It's not like I'm speaking and I don't know what I'm talking about. There's no reason that the review should be taking almost a week per review. That's not okay. I'm sorry. I disagree with you. You
If
may
you're
have
not-
50 people.
Right, so
I
if you're not on a vacation, that's basically one review per day, where like Dorian said, there's no reason why you can't do 3 and 4 in a day.
Thought, to back up for a minute, we're asking managers now, Jay, it's part of the tuition, everything bleeds into everything else. It's part of tuition reimbursement. We're only going to consider applications from people who have an individual development plan. So, and then we're going to ask them to develop individual development plans. I mean, looking beyond that, Dorian has asked that I put an item on the agenda for August that this board see all employee development plans. So I'm not sure how we ask department heads to develop employee development plans when they're not physically in the same place as employees and they have to collaborate on this. I don't know, it seems to me I've asked a lot less of people and it's taken a lot longer, but maybe I'm misplaced. Maybe everybody has all the time in the world, so.
many of my employees are only working 1 day a week if they're part-time, and some at the moment aren't working at all. So,
Those reviews should be easy.
all right.
Okay,
I still have an employee review to do from FY22 that was delayed. It was a 6-month evaluation, so I need to submit that for next week. Just going back to this is from a while ago, Dorian, but I have employees who are being evaluated this year who have never had the long form evaluation because they're either new or they were promoted into new roles. So some of the employee evaluations that you'll get from the library won't have a long form review because it's the employee's first evaluation. Does that make sense?
Makes total sense, and I understand that, Ryan, but it shouldn't be taking you a full day or 4 days to do someone's review.
Okay, so I have to do 15 though.
I understand, but you don't need 10 weeks to do 15 reviews.
There's other responsibilities I have to do other than only reviewing employees. So I mean, I can try to get everything done in 2 weeks. I'll prioritize this, I guess.
I'm not saying 2 weeks. I'm saying we should probably push it back till August and give you a few weeks, but I think that 10 weeks is an unacceptable time frame to get your reviews done. I think that's way too much time. We need to get these guys their raises. The employees, they should have had their raises on July 1st. And this is taking too long. It's getting too complicated. We
Okay.
just need to get it
Can
done.
I make a suggestion that we set a deadline of August 31st, so we'll have it for the September meeting?
okay, just, thank you, Dave, for your comment. Just to clarify, if we're meeting on Wednesday, the 12th, the deadline for the packets. So there's been a little confusion about this. Townhouse is only open half day on Friday. Jim Haggerty needs the packets the night before, so he needs them on Thursday, the 6th. So Vanessa and I traditionally ask people to get us the packets on Monday, the week before, so we can review them together, see if there's any issues that we need to go back to. Filing the packet on Thursday in a case of emergency on Friday. So how many weeks between now and August 3rd? That's what you would be giving people.
Can we just move our meeting back 1 week?
To August 9th. I already sent out notice to everybody that we're meeting on the 12th. You want to change that to the 19th?
It gives 1 more week for the reviewers, and it'll give everybody a month of notice.
Yeah, so right now they would have, if the message went out today from me,
Yeah, don't
they would
month's
have
notice.
1, 2, less than 3. They would have 2.5 weeks to comply with the new policy.
With our current meeting date, you're saying?
Right.
Yeah, because when you think about it, don't think about the deadlines for the packet are a week before, week to 10 days before the actual meeting. So if you meet on the 12th, Vanessa and I are posting that packet. Jim would ideally like it Thursday night so that
Right,
he
so-
can do his ADA compliance. You see it on Friday. That backs up to the previous Monday. Do you see my emails that I send out every month saying when the meeting is? That contains the deadlines.
But what if we
So
just put
for
the
a
meeting
meeting
back
on
a
the
week?
12th, we're looking to get this stuff. You know, Vanessa and I don't always get it on Monday. We talk on Tuesday. Sometimes it dribbles in on Wednesday. But at least you should be thinking a week to 10 days before the meeting is when folks are getting us the documentation. So today's the 15th. I send out a memo this afternoon saying, here's what we need you to do. They'll have the week of the 20th, the week of the 27th, and so effectively 2 weeks.
Right, so if we move our meeting to the 19th, that gives 3 weeks.
Or the
So I don't
26th.
I guess
Right.
I don't understand why. I like Dave's idea. Give them till August 31st. You're upending the entire way reviews have been done in this town forever, Vanessa, by anniversary date. There's going to be questions, comments, and concerns. We've heard them from Ryan. All the board members are entitled to their opinions. That's why we're a board. I personally would not substitute my judgment for how long this task should take. But again, I'm not an HR professional. And I had a couple of paralegals I did reviews for.
I'm
was
very
not in
confident that the August 31st, date would be very workable. I was just primarily concerned that July 24th was too soon.
I think
Thank you,
August
Vanessa.
31st is good.
Yeah, I mean,
I agree.
what's the downside of pushing the date out to make sure people have adequate time to do it?
That's all
Yeah.
right, move our meeting
We
back.
also don't have a workable draft yet. I can't send this out as is because it's not in final form. One of the drafters needs to put this in final form
Yeah, I
with the
have,
comments of the board, and then I will forward it on. I want it to come from somebody who did the work with Brian, because as I said the last meeting, I'm not the best messenger for this. I'm happy to set up email groups and send it out. So someone will put this in final and I'll forward it and you'll add the deadline and then it will go.
I'll be happy to do that. I do have at least one other suggested change.
Thank you,
Based on-
Mary. Go ahead.
Based on the first comments that were made, if the first bullet point says currently based on anniversary date for each employee, it would be clearer to people that it's,
Thank you.
and the other one was to Paul Sabelli's point. Do we want to change the first bullet point under pay increases to just say
2.8.
increases 2.8?
Yeah, I think that would make sense.
Yeah, because I know we don't use the word COLA because it's not a union, but that's how we have viewed it, as a flat rate.
Right, example 1 and 2 would have to change because they both mentioned 2%.
Do you want to
Mhm.
change it to recommend the increase of 2.8?
I would say under pay increases, the annual salary adjustment for FY '21 is 2.8.
Yep.
Okay,
That
And
works for
maybe
me.
you could say in the parentheses, a range of 0 to 3 is no longer in effect for FY '21. And I'm sure, Barry, you can state it more gracefully.
I'll try.
We could have chosen to say, hey, managers, it's a range of 0 to 2.8, but we didn't. We said, Paul is correct, we said 2.8.
Okay,
So have we settled on a date then? Do you need a motion to change it?
I
August
don't, we
31st.
haven't made a motion for any of the other changes, so I think Barry could go forward. It's the sense of the board to add to this draft the deadline, change the deadline of 24 to August 31st, 2020. And that is a Monday. So that would be at 5 PM. Close of business 5 PM. And he'll change it that they should go to Vanessa Hale and Betsy Rosenblum, Chair of Personnel Board. And just for me, after I get this, in line with the discussion about communication, what audience is going to get this message? Managers, meaning department heads, and the chairs of the public bodies, that with the SAP employees. Is this going to all SAP employees? Or do we want to tell department heads, please tell your employees that we're synchronizing? Who's the audience? Because we won't, Barry will put this in final. I'm sure he'll do a terrific job. And then he'll hand it off to me to send it out, and I need to know who I'm sending it to, who the board wants it sent to.
Well, definitely department heads.
Yeah, so back to the earlier discussion of our audience. Department heads, chairs of public bodies with SAP employees, because you know, if you look at my census, we've got departments, and then on the second page, we have public bodies who do reviews. The Board of Health, Conservation Commission, EDC, and Planning Board. And I'm not sure I even got that all right. One of the things I noticed, and this will be for a future discussion, on the new form, the cover sheet, if we see just the cover sheet, this board does not know who the reviewer was. I put that on my census, NL means not listed. So if you're just looking at the cover sheet of the new form, you won't know who the reviewer is. So I can't confirm in all cases if it's a chair of a body, if the body itself, I know for a couple of them, because I had the old form. For example, Karina Quinn, our town planner, the chair of the planning board, who's currently Mr. Morris, did her review. So I listed that. But for many of them, I don't know. And there could be joint authority. I know with the senior center, the director, Pamela Francois, she was reviewed on the old form that shows that we got the full thing, that the chair of the Council on Aging reviewed her. But you wouldn't know that with the new form. So
No,
we
but
need,
we should know who the reviewer is that hands in
Yeah,
the reviews.
I'm gonna
If
put that on the
submitted.
agenda. I'm gonna put that on the agenda. We need to discuss, I guess, updating the new form. Maybe we, you know, we should do these things all together, but right now but we're gonna see the full review, so it's not an issue for today. So the audience for this email message is managers, which means department heads, and the chairs of the boards with SAP employees. The question I have for the board is, do you want this outline that Mr. Rubenstein is gonna finish up to go to all SAP employees?
it seems to me if we're going to communicate directly with employees, they don't need all of the information here. I would prefer, if we're going to do that, to do it in a separate document.
Okay, so do we want me to send out something to them, or do we want to tell department heads to share this? If you look in your packet at page 6, all that the SAP employees have gotten from me so far is that we've got a new SAP. Here's where you can find it. There's been changes to a tuition reimbursement. We're gonna set the deadline for tuition reimbursement at our meeting on Zoom. That's all SAP employees got from me. So if we're gonna improve our communication, it starts with me understanding what this board wants and making sure that I raise this anytime we say we're gonna send something out. So what do we want to tell SAP employees about synchronization? Or do we want to leave the messaging to the managers?
I think the messaging should be done by the department heads, the managers.
Okay,
I'm good with that.
so that needs to be added to this, I would say. We need to give something to Barry to recommend to say on this, or if you want me to just put it in the cover email. We have received feedback before from employees that they don't always get a message that's sent to department heads. This happened with employee development training. Employees came to me and said they never got notice of the Excel class, I think, that was available, and in other cases. So we're either sending a separate message or we're highlighting for the department heads and the other managers that we want them to share this information. I mean, they're gonna know employees have to sign off on reviews. I know it's getting a little confusing. When we went to that cover sheet only thing, the board took itself a step back from the reviews, but there's an end page with signatures with the reviewer's name and the employee signs off. So I imagine, I don't know if Mr. Donovan's still here, he can probably attest to the fact that his employees are going to know in short order that he's re-reviewing them. And do we want the employees to sign off on the cover sheets? If so, for the new reviews from March to June, we're giving the department head discretion to submit a new review. Are we gonna have the employees signing off on the new cover page? No, because the cover pages don't have signatures. But
Oh, we
for
need signatures.
what?
We should have the signatures, especially if the department head, the person reviewing.
It's not on the cover page,
I
Diane, so it
understand.
doesn't fall under this policy.
I understand, doesn't mean we can't change it later for next year, not for this year.
So. Sorry to prolong the meeting, but the devil's in the details and I don't want to leave without knowing what the sense of the board is in terms of how to communicate. I feel like sometimes I have to make these decisions in between meetings and I don't want to do that while we're in an open meeting and we have an opportunity to focus on it. I would prefer that the board decide that as a group. Again, the issue is who is the audience? If we're not going to send it to all SAP employees, do we want to put a message in here for the department heads, what we want them to communicate?
Well, if we're going to do that, I don't know that I'd put it in here, but I would put it in your cover email in terms of what's expected of the managers, that they should communicate about the synchronization and most importantly about pay increases and how those are going to be handled for this year.
Yeah, getting back to my earlier point that we want employees to be comfortable with the fact that they're not going to get any less compensation. These examples, I'm told, will do that, hopefully, but they're not going to be, do we want to ask department heads to read this policy? To read it with the employees? And then in that case, why wouldn't we sign this, send this whole thing out to, what is it, too much information for employees?
Well, I mean, I think it's a lot of mechanics that may or may not be of interest to employees. I don't have a problem if we want to send the whole thing out. I think it's more than we need to communicate with them, but I'm all for transparency. So if that sort of solves the problem in the easiest way, then do that.
Does anybody have a problem if I send it to everybody? Mr. Purple, Ms. Hale?
Nope, I think the more information we get out, the better.
That's fine.
Okay. And lastly, to whom do we want to direct them if they have questions? Do we want to continue this bifurcated system where department heads talk to Mark, but the chairs of the elected boards come to personnel board? Do we want to tell them, hey, if you have any questions, call me, call Barry, call Jay, call Brian? Who are they supposed to call? That's my last question.
Hello, is everybody awake?
I don't know who it's gonna go to.
Mark loves phone calls. Send them to Mark. No, don't.
Well, previously, Mark, and he hasn't spoken on this today, has communicated with department heads. But as we've seen, we have other managers and we're responsible for those as a board. And Mark sometimes sends a message and it's his message and it's his words, and it may not have the detail that this board envisioned. I gave you a couple of examples of the emails that he has sent. So,
So have them call you if they have questions.
well, I know that Mark likes to communicate with department heads and that's appropriate. He works with them. So do we want to continue the bifurcated system that we have? Where
I'm
he
okay with,
communica-
I'm okay with all calls going to Mark.
I don't know that, Mark, are you gonna, do you want to communicate with the chairs of the elected boards?
I have no problem communicating with them. That's not an issue with me.
Okay, all right, because previously the emails haven't gone to them. You don't have an email list on the town of Southborough distribution list for that.
No, we don't have one for the chairs for the elected boards.
Okay, so how would you communicate with them? Tom has helped me set up a private distribution list for that, but it's not on your system.
Right, so I'll communicate with the chairs of the elected boards. They'll just be added into the communication.
I'm sorry, how would that communication take place?
I have their emails, Betsy, so I'm not sure what the question is.
Okay, so I'm gonna send this, Barry's gonna put this in final. I'm gonna send it out to the various distribution lists, and I'm gonna say, if anybody has questions, contact Mark. That's good with you?
Yeah, that's fine.
Sorry, guys.
Okay.
Sorry, it's my New Hampshire plumber.
I can always add myself. If somebody wants to call me, I don't mind putting that. It could be Mark or Betsy. I don't really care. I just want to make sure everybody gets covered because they haven't in the past. All right. Anything else, Barry? You're good?
No?
Okay. All right. So I think we're done. Anybody have any other business? All right, board calendar. We have scheduled a meeting for August 12th, Wednesday at noon. Does anyone want to schedule ahead to September?
Sure.
Can we go ahead and pencil in? Do you want to do the second week in September?
Is that the 9th?
Yeah, that was the 2 days after Labor Day, which I think is problematic in terms of getting notices and people, if people go away for, not go away, take time off, shelter in place, but take time off over Labor Day weekend. We could push it off to the 16th.
Either one
Dorian,
works.
does that work for you?
I'm in Disney on the 16th and I'm not going to Disney.
Okay, well,
I haven't been in months. I'm going and I'm there
Okay.
for that week. So I'm not available that entire week.
okay,
The 14th.
excuse me?
I'm not available the week of the 14th.
Okay, I know that you periodically have those trips, and I think we agreed last year we would not be able to schedule around the trips, so if we do it on the second week of September, I just think there are issues putting together the packet and getting everybody to phone in. They're getting the materials over the Labor Day weekend. I don't know. Vanessa, do you have 2 cents on that?
I think we're giving people plenty of advance notice if you want to meet the second week in September, so I have no issue with staying with the 9th.
Okay. Board?
9th works for me.
Okay.
Same here.
September 9th. We
Okay,
are
great.
calendar for September 9th. Okay, if anybody doesn't have anything else, I think we can adjourn. Everybody good?
Everybody's. yeah, I'm
Good here.
Yep.
Everybody stay well.
All
You
right,
too.
thank you all. This was a kind of a difficult, long discussion, and I thank everyone for their patience, and I think we're on track. And Barry, I'm here whenever you have something to send me. And thanks to Mark and Vanessa and Brian and Ryan. And we are gavelled out. We are adjourned at 1:42. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
Thank you.